Hallo, Priska.
Hallo Albrecht, wie schön,
Ja.
dich heute zu sehen hier. Ich drehe mal um.
Mhm.
Ja, wunderbar. Today we wanted to speak with you in English
Yes.
about your
Mhm.
work. So welcome to our Instagram live talks. And I just was going around a little bit in the gallery.
Mhm.
And yeah, let's see.
Mhm.
Very exciting.
Thanks for the invitation.
Great pleasure. So I think before we start, Katja will do a little introduction,
Mhm.
and we will learn a little bit about you. Just a moment. So here is Katja.
Hi, Albrecht.
Hi, Katja.
Welcome in the gallery virtually. Shall I stand here?
Yes,
Okay.
perfect.
So yeah, we're really happy to talk with you today. Having had you here as a guest, as an artist in two of our exhibitions, in the current exhibition on Equal Terms 2, and almost a year ago, or a bit more than a year already ago, in the double show Fields of Emotional Habits, together with Radek Kominak. So yeah, today we can talk to you at least. I would like to introduce you to our public. Albrecht Schäfer is an artist who lives in Berlin, lives and works in Berlin. Originally, he's from Stuttgart. He is a professor at the Weißensee Kunsthochschule in Berlin for sculpture. And his own studies were held in Braunschweig, in London and Munich. And as a sculptor, he is well known for his installations, site-specific installations, which are usually are rather minimal and with very reduced materials, everyday materials like wooden construction parts for roofs or newspapers. Or other papers that he cuts and opens up in a spatial way. So he interferes in a very minimal way in the structure of the rooms, changing light and shadow and building frontiers. So this is very interesting. But what we showed a year ago were his small paintings, because a couple of years ago he turned towards paintings in oil on canvas, figurative paintings, interiors and still lifes. And of course they also have a lot to do with space and rooms. They were done in his studio. And maybe he can tell us a bit about them, because we prepared some of them here and can show them. And what we also can show is a little sculptural work, a three-dimensional work. We might turn around for a moment and see the work from our current exhibition on Equal Terms 2. It is a round form, a ball, a little planet. It's made of paper. Maybe Albrecht can tell us himself what this little object is about.
But maybe before we start going into the artworks, I would like to ask you, how are you? How have you been in these Corona times? How do you feel?
Thanks. I feel quite well. I have to admit, I know that for many other people, Corona is a big crisis, and in other parts of the world it's a disaster. But so far for me, I more profit from the situation than I suffer from it. I have to say, I enjoy the quiet atmosphere in the streets. I look into the sky and see blue and no industrial traces, and I think that's for me it's a big joy. I'm also, I mean, I can go to my studio. I can continue working. We're all healthy. My family is doing well, and I also can continue doing my job at the art college. So for me, life is going on more or less like it was. Maybe I have more time to work and to also maybe to spend time with my family, and that's also positive. So in that respect, I'm not ignoring the other side, but I don't find it so difficult for me personally.
But this is what we hear from a lot of artists, that in fact for them life is not changing so much, you know, because being lonely in the studio and being for themselves, occupying with something that is coming out of them is the usual form of living and working for an artist.
That's true.
What's with your students?
I'm very surprised. I mean, no, I really like to go there physically and analog, but I'm very surprised that it's really continuous. I mean, we meet with each other via video conferences, and of course, it's only possible for a certain period of time, but so far, I'm in very close contact with the students, and we meet. We talk about what they can do. Of course, this facilities are very limited. They have maybe only a desk left, but sometimes you can also continue working there, and maybe it's even good if you're not distracted so much, and you can think of what you want to do. You can read books. And I have the impression that, for instance, a friend of mine told me she started writing poems recently. And as she said, she realized she always wanted to do that her whole life. And now she did it, So there's the side as well. And technically, I think we, luckily, digitalization is in a stage that it is possible to continue talking with each other like we do now, and so a lot is possible. Yeah.
Great. But but it's a crisis in a crisis. Huh? We were speaking about this subject before, that Corona is one thing, but the climate change is not forgotten, and
exactly.
And so the world is now in a stopped completely, but on the other side we have all these terrible things going on, you know, that for here in Cologne, for example, we had no rain for weeks now, except yesterday, and so everything is dry, and things like that. The awareness of these things is very obvious as well. Absolutely,
and that I worry much more about that, and I did so before. And when people say it's a big crisis, not the biggest crisis since the Second World War, I think the biggest crisis is permanent for many years and decades even. And I think if we don't change a lot very fast, it's going to be a much bigger disaster than Corona. But it's interesting to see how much is possible within a few days. Basically, the world kind of changed its habits totally. I mean, this is really fascinating. So in that respect, one can construct some kind of hope out of it. I'm skeptical, but at least there's movement.
There is no freedom for change. We have to change now. So it's not a decision at the moment anymore. It could have been before 20 years ago, but it hasn't been. And now we have to change. But let's come back to your world. So Le Monde by Albrecht Schäfer. And here is this fantastic work that we selected for our exhibition on Equal Terms 2. And maybe you can tell us a little bit about it.
Yes, it's basically a piece I did about 10 years ago, or I did the first ones 10 years ago. And it's one issue of the French newspaper Le Monde. And the title of the piece is Le Monde, 2nd of July 2019, which is in French, which is the which is written on top of the newspaper. It's also the title. It's also the material, and Le Monde also gives the shape, kind of, because it's kind of like a globe, and changes the stories of one day of the world in a way to a small paper sphere. But it also looks like a bit more like in German we have the word the moon, der Mond, and funnily le monde and der Mond is the same, almost the same word, once meaning the moon and once meaning the world. And here the sphere looks in a way more like the moon because it's a gray sphere.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so something very big is compressed into something very small and dense. It's, I always like to imagine that it's very, very heavy lifting it up because it contains the whole world. In fact, it's a bit more heavy than you. It's a bit heavier than you think.
Mm. Yeah, it's a small piece. I made a couple of these spheres, and I made one more piece for this exhibition now, which opened last August.
Yeah, very nice, great.
And it's not only something very big put into a very small form, but also the idea of time, idea of time of a whole day in one material object.
Yes, metaphorically, yeah. Mm.
Yeah. I love this piece very much. Thank you so much. And so now we are coming to the paintings. So here, this is the painting that we selected for the announcement.
Yes. Yeah, it's a relatively recent painting showing a few stones, like a still life, and which I have set up in my studio. And behind the still life, there's the studio space itself, with a door and the view into a second room, and also some paintings on the wall. And but it also looks like as if the still life is in front of a painting, because the colors are not natural in comparison to the stones, which are depicted more or less as I've seen them. So it's a combination of two layers, and combines, and in that respect it's an exception, combines two series, the interiors and the stone still lifes, the stones.
Yeah, the stones seem to be put on a kind of a stage, so it also has the idea of a theater situation.
Yes. Yeah, the stones are a weird subject because on the one hand, everybody has these stones on the windowsill, and everybody picks them up from the street, and or has it in the pocket, or so there's so many stone collections around the world, and it had been a habit always. But once you try to depict this motive, which you see everywhere. I mean, on the windowsill, this is also how it happened that I started to paint it, because it was just there. You discover that it's really hard to paint, not technically, but to make a motive out of this stone. A friend of mine who's an art historian told me that this motive isn't existing more or less in art history.
Oh, really?
If you look really closely, you might find in recent painting, because you find everything. I mean, it's I guess
it's more the mountains than the stones, yeah. Yes,
I mean, you have a lot of stone paintings with stones or felsen or rocks in sceneries, in the landscape, like Courbet, yeah, and in 19th century painting particularly. But as still life, yeah, which is a certain genre, there is everything. There's cups and bottles and also sticks and wood and everything.
Oranges.
Oranges and heads of animals or dead animals and whatever.
Yeah.
But no stones.
Ah, interesting. I never thought about it.
Yeah, and I mean, I wasn't aware of that when I started painting them, but I started to understand why it seems to be true, because it's so difficult to make a painting out of it.
Okay.
And the stone seems to ignore your ambition totally. I mean, the stone doesn't care of its surrounding, it doesn't care if it's upside down or the other way around. It's completely ignorant object, and this might be one reason why its autonomy is so hard to put into context, because it's so autonomous that every context, like a space you put or like something you put the stone on, or, seems to be arbitrary. And this arbitrariness, it's a big problem for painting, because you always look for a relationship between elements within the painting, which give you the reason that it has to be like that.
Okay, that means
not differently.
the stones they won the battle here, the war, because the painting you can't really see anymore.
Yeah, yes.
They are so present.
Yes, in a way, yes, yeah.
Yeah, it's strange that they were not more often used as symbols for eternity, or so in European painting, but they play an important role in the Asian culture as well. They were collected as philosopher's stones, so not precious stones, but rather normal stones, but with a particular form, and they are put onto little bases or even surrounded by little architectures.
True.
And kept very carefully.
Very beautifully. That's true. I admire that a lot, and and you have stones, of course. I mean, real stones in sculpture, like in arte povera. But of course, you also have stones in Jewish cemeteries or wherever in every culture. Stones represent different things, like eternity, or like they can also carry all sorts of memories. Like you pick it up from a journey, and you keep this stone, which is really not different from any other stone, all your life, because you think there's something of the journey within that stone, which is completely projection. There's nothing about. But or if there's I keep a stone from my grandmother. It's the only object I have from my grandmother, which is in my room. And somehow it represents her. So there's some emotional relationship to it. So there is happening a lot of things with stones.
Absolutely.
Or take a handful of stones piled up one upon the other. It's already a sign or already a creative gesture. So I know these little pyramids of stones from the hiking trails in the Alps.
Yes, yeah. They even discovered that what's that in English? Monkeys. They what? Cheetahs. Okay. They put stones on top of each other, and Horst Bredekamp, who wrote a beautiful text about that, reflects whether this might be the origin or one very early sign of culture, because there is one can't recognize any purpose in it, but it might have to do something with an image. So they create an image which plays a role in their social habits. Like, this is the place where the stones are on top of each other. There's nothing else going on, but this is the place, and we have to, react to it, whatever this is. So it's hard to understand what monkeys think, but in any case, one can observe this behavior with these monkeys. What was the word?
I think it's cheetah.
Cheetahs, and can't explain it differently than culturally. And so from very early on, however this interpretation is from very early on, it exists, this habit of collecting stones.
Octopuses also collect stones, or some collect
Oh,
stones.
really?
Yeah, some collect stones,
Okay.
and others collect shells, and some collect both. So in a little cave where they dwell, they keep them, and some some prefer those, and some prefer shells. So.
Okay. Yeah.
I remember my father, he was a painter as well, and he did a lot, he was collecting a lot of stones. So, and then I was with him, I think in Sardinia, so, and then we were in a river, and there were so beautiful stones. And as a child, I was so fascinated by all these stones, and I took them at home, and then at home they were gray.
Yeah, yes.
So now we are here back to your painting. So the next one, oops. So here we are.
Another collection of objects.
Yeah, not stones, but
or accumulation.
Yeah. Yes.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about this painting?
This belongs to the series of Anteriors, and they show Anteriors, which are always my studio, actually. I built models of cardboard of my studio space, which is an apartment, actually. So there is a sequence, several spaces, and I built kind of boxes which show all these spaces. There's a kitchen and so on. And without any furniture or any other details, and the walls are flexible, or just maybe I remove a wall so I get another view into the space, not only through the windows or doors, but also like a stage. And I paint these spaces, which are partly anteriors, when I'm relatively close to the model. So next to my easel, there's this model, or if I go a bit further away, I see these models as objects, so I have this space as an object as well, and can depict it like a small sculpture. And in this case, there's in this painting, I started with empty rooms, and then I discovered that they also become too meaningful in a sense that one thinks, it's always kind of this empty space, or what does that mean? Or is there happening something? Is there a stage? And I didn't want to have this kind of, how can I say, I don't want to say, okay, this painting is about this or that. It should just be a painting. And then I had to destroy this emptiness again, which started to become a cliche, or which started to become kitsch, if you want. And I put first a bit of furniture into it, which also was at first related to the existing furniture, but then also just threw material into it, like things I found, I don't know, on the floor, or material which was a leftover of the building of the models. And then there's this chaotic situation, which I don't want to comment otherwise than how I made it. Yes, yeah. Please don't think that my studio looks like that, but I hope it doesn't, actually.
I also don't believe that your studio is so pale pink. So the colors are very, very particular.
Yeah, this comes from the materials I use. I mean, I use cardboard, different sorts of cardboard, gray and brownish ones, and or sometimes pieces of wood, like the floor, which was a wooden board in this case. And I try to observe the colors very precisely, which is difficult because it changes every day, because the light changes, but I personally have difficulties to just decide for a certain color. I try to use my eyes to really see what's happening, and I think there's happening a lot if you just look at how the light is on a surface. There's already, you have a beautiful sunlight reflection on the painting now.
Yeah,
very nice.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
it's
yeah,
very
the sun is
beautiful.
coming.
Yeah,
You know, I was
yeah.
just thinking.
That's very beautiful. This could be a
It's
start of
not so bad on painting. So if this
yeah.
would
No,
be a
no, no.
photograph, that
I
would be
think
terrible. Oh, yeah.
exactly. Yeah. Oh, if you hear with the writing, it's on the edge. Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Here, Albrecht.
uh,
Oh, where are
yeah,
you?
that's very funny. Yeah, mysterious.
Mysterious, exactly.
No, I think like this reflection on the painting is something which I also see in the models. It's just how it happens, and can give me, it can attract my attention, and I try to work with it, even though it's very ephemeral and maybe not, I mean very little as a sensation, but does represent something I'm interested in.
This is really amazing. It's so the colors are so incredible. It's so colorful and so pale at the same time.
Yeah, when I work with the colors, I mean, I start from observation, but then I paint. I try to really to find the right color. But when it's on the painting, there's always something else next to it. There's a relationship to the rectangle of the canvas, to other surfaces, other fields of the painting, and then I have to react to that as well. So I can't only observe, because then I would be a photographer. I would just copy what I see. But from the first brush stroke on, there's something happening on the canvas, which is something which is really kind of a system in its own, and it has something to do with the tension between three-dimensionality and two-dimensionality, because you see something which is actually not existing, because it's really flat, but it looks like space. But it's not only kind of the geometrical perspective, but it's also the space which is created through illusion, like through colors, or like kind of the sharpness of the painting and so on. So there's next to the model, which has an own kind of reality.
Yeah.
There's the reality of the painting. I mean, before the model, there's even the real space, which is kind of the first layer, and then there's the model, and then there's the painting. And each of these worlds have their own rights, so to speak. Yeah. And but even the painting isn't kind of an authority in itself. I mean, it also reacts, all my decisions not only react to kind of how a painting should be composed and so on, but also to the images I have in my own head, and also the kind of the physical, my body feeling I have at a certain day. I come into the studio, I'm kind of very nervous, and of course this will infect my, not only kind of the brush strokes, also that, but also my own judgment of the painting. For instance, I see something, I'm nervous, but then I see a painting which is very quiet, and then I say, okay, this is somehow it's just not working, because there should be some more nervous, because then it feels more closer to me, or maybe I feel very I'm interested in kind of something very fragile or vulnerable, or something which is more hesitating, and then I look maybe for these elements in the painting and try to enforce them. So every day, kind of, it's another approach to the painting, and of course, all other elements, like things I've seen in art history. If I read books, look at books, or go into the museum, and other images like Instagram images I see in the morning, and then go to the studio. So this all affects, of course, my own judgment of the painting, and etc. There's a lot. It's really chaotic system, and if you are aware of it once, you know that it's all a very liquid situation. You have it looks very solid, because it's kind of a rectangular, more or less rectangular architecture, and and it seems to be very controlled, the paint. But in fact, I have the feeling that painting is a very something very moving. All elements are, I try to balance them. So I have one, I do one bit darker and one bit lighter, and they react with each other, and it's not something stable. And at a certain point, you find a balance, or you try to find a balance. But this balance isn't something kind of really safe. It's only a subjective balance. And I see this quality, or maybe I react to that kind of quality also in other artworks. I go to the museum, and if I see some Renaissance paintings, maybe it's a projection, but I have the feeling that I see this kind of liquid element in painting.
What's totally different from your sculptural earlier works is that your other works, they avoid a personal handwriting, and painting has always been about personal style and personal handwriting or brushstroke. You have very special colors. You chose the motifs. They're reduced to interiors and the stone still lifes. Is this a topic for yourself? I mean, did you think about this, or do you think about this, that you might show more of yourself than with your other works?
I'm not so sure if artists kind of consciously decide for a certain style. I mean, maybe sometimes
that people could try to find it in your paintings.
Yes, of course, and of course I realize that I use certain stylistic elements, and of course you react more closely to a certain kind of art and not to another one. So if I, for instance, have a look at a painting by Chardin or by Cézanne or by Morandi or by many other artists, I think they directly speak to me somehow. And whatever this is, I mean, this can only be a section, or maybe it can be just something. I'm not saying something about Cézanne. I mean, I have no idea what this person was about, but there's something really happening when I look at that painting. And I think this kind of also leads you towards a certain style. I'm sure there's a a lot of influences. But when I started doing these paintings, I mean, for me, it was a big change, because I did the 3-dimensional installations and video works, and also Kunst am Bau, so art and architecture, things like it's really big scale stuff. And then I started building this tiny cardboard model, this box, and looked into that box for weeks and years in a way. And closed the door behind myself. So it was a big difference, and I used a very traditional painting style also. In the beginning, it was more a private decision. I really wanted to do it. I had the feeling that there's something, why I just wanted to do it. That was basically it. And then after a few years, I realized, okay, maybe it's possible to exhibit these works as well. But there was no moment when I decided to use a certain range of colors, or I mean, I know where they are from, because they are from the cardboard I use, and sometimes I change it sometimes on the canvas, but it's more this kind of tonality, more or less. But then, I mean, the other day we were talking about colors, and it's the same thing with my installations. They also have these colors in a way. If I use wood or paper and daylight, or even if I use newspaper, it's this kind of arte povera like paint colors. And
I'm looking here at your catalog now.
Mm-hmm. So there must be some attraction to this kind of the colors, but also there's for instance, natural, simple colors, and I'm skeptical about things which are too artificial. But I think that's a very personal, subjective thing. I also like very much bright colors. I mean, it's not that I don't like them. It's just if I work on it and I correct my painting so often. I mean, I go over it for months. They always disappear. I mean, I start to start brighter colors, or I even thought of painting the models in other colors. But then I go in the morning, I go into the studio, look at the painting, which is actually the crucial moment of the day. And faster than I can think, I have an opinion of what I see.
Okay.
And meanwhile, I try to memorize this opinion which I have, and try to start the whole day more or less into that direction. Because if you're standing in front of a painting, there's a moment when it's very difficult to judge. You're influenced much by what you want. But in the morning, you see the painting kind of with fresh eyes. I mean, that's something many painters describe as a phenomenon. And then I come to the studio and see it bright red and think, no, this is not something I should leave. And then I start to paint gray over it. This is how it happens. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's always fascinating. You know, you can go. Oh, let's hear. This is an installation. So keep this in mind. I will show you something else. Here. Here's this element again.
Yeah. It's funny because, I mean, not many people realize that. But of course, it's obvious if you've seen an image of the older installation, which is a work I've done 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's called Black Sun, and it's an installation. It's a lamp which is hanging down from the ceiling, and it's black. It's an ordinary industrial lamp, but it's black, painted, and nothing else. But if you go very close, you feel the warmth of it. You feel that there's actually a lot of energy in it, because the light bulb is just basically switched on, and it produces a lot of heat, and you can feel that, but only if you're very close to it. So you have to go very close to the work in order to understand it. And it's kind of an autistic piece in a way, because everything emotional or energetic is really close within itself. And somehow these boxes I look into and paint sometimes also have this. There's a closed system.
Absolutely, but on the other side, it's very open, because I think that me as a viewer of your art, of your paintings, you know, I can look for hours, and I always find something new and something else, and it's a very open system at the same time. And you know, it happened. Maybe there's a certain calmness, and then sometimes you get excited, and so there's all these things that you describe while you are in the process. You have them as well when you see them, but there is no expression. Everything is very soft, very settled. It's very the expression, not expression. I don't mean this. It's like not so outgoing. You know, not.
I'm glad you see it like that. I mean, the process of painting is something. I mean, at least that kind of painting is an open thing. You start. I mean, you have an idea, a vague idea of what you want to paint, and in my case, it seems to be quite fixed, because there's the model, the cardboard model next to the easel, and I really try to copy it at first. But in fact, if I realize that it's not good to be on the painting, I start to change the painting, and this is maybe 95% of the time I spend with the painting, changing things on the painting. which has very little to do, which have very little to do with the model. And this process has no fixed destination. I don't have the idea of doing this or that. I just try to move these colors and the light slightly, maybe some objects. Sometimes I add or remove a wall. So there are some changes, but until I find a situation when there's some kind of fluid stability, or I don't know how to express it, but when I think, okay, now it doesn't get better when I change more. So this open, if you say there's also an openness. For me, this is the real situation in the studio. I never know how the painting develops, and sometimes you're very close. I mean, retrospectively, judge, you're very close to the end, but you think it's not going to work at all.
Okay.
But then you change a tiny bit, and then it is all. But very rarely this moment happens.
but it's also inside outside. No? This is we are here inside the room. That you have at the same time you have the same space outside. You see from above what it's not possible to see, and then here you have it like on a theater, like in an opera. Like you have the surroundings, so you have all these different. You can't see it really. So this is the space outside. The same. It's your studio. Seen from the outside without being
one room in the studio.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a strange moment when you have these models, and when you're very close, you look into the space, and then it's an anterior. It's obviously an interior space, and then you move away, and then there's a moment when, well, it's a continuous moment when the anterior changes into an object. I mean, these are really two different space and object. Are really two different things. Yeah. But there's some kind of shift between them, according to the distance to it. And I really like to play with these, even if it's both at the same time, or you have parts of the painting which are clearly. Then you see the architecture as a construction. As a model, but also you can dive into the painting at the same time.
Yeah, Albrecht, it was really a great talk. Thank you so much. We are already. It's really very, very quickly past the time. And thank you so much. And I hope we continue the dialogue very soon.
Well,
let's speak about. We have some more works here from you in the gallery. And I would like that we make another talk together in a couple of weeks about the other works that we have here. Thank you so much, and keep well, keep on going. And
you too. Stay healthy, and talk to you soon.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.